First example for today is going to come from the worksheet C page, and we're going to look at question number 5. In question number 5, we are given, it says that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2, and that angle 3 is congruent to angle 1. We are asked to prove that BC is parallel to EF. And then we have a picture where we have points A, B, C, D, E goes down here, and F, and angles 1, 2, and 3 labeled there. In the last assignment where you were writing proofs, in our givens, we were given that we had parallel lines. Maybe we were also given information about angles, but we were given information about having parallel lines and asked to prove information about angles. This assignment is exactly the opposite. In this lesson, we will be given information about angles and asked to prove that we have parallel lines. There are 5 ways that we can prove that we have parallel lines, and they are in your notes packet. Remember how it got stapled kind of strange? It's actually the front of that second packet. There's a flow chart for you, and on the left-hand side of that flow chart, it tells us the 5 different things that we can do to prove that lines are parallel. So mine is sideways, but yours is up and down. It's the front page of that second packet that was passed out because the printer stapled it weird. So it should be the very front page of that second packet. On that flow chart, on the left-hand side, it says ways to prove that lines are parallel. And our 5 different ways are if corresponding angles are congruent, if alternate interior angles are congruent, if same side interior are supplementary, if 2 lines are perpendicular to the same line, or if they are parallel to the same line. So those are the 5 things that we're going for in these problems. Any one of those is going to be an okay reason. Those are our 5 goals to show that we have some parallel lines here. So in a proof, a good place to start is the given. So we're going to start there. Angle 1, congruent to angle 2, and angle 3, congruent to angle 1. And that is given. I like to mark my pictures up when I know stuff. So I know that 1 and 2 are the same, and I know that 3 and 1 are the same. So what does that mean? 3 and 2 are the same, because they are all marked the same now in the picture. So angle 3 is the same as angle 2. What would a reason be? Transitive or substitution. Either one of those is acceptable. Transitive is a little bit more specific, but substitution is totally fine. Now in the picture, if we look at angles 3 and 2, what kind of angles are angles 3 and 2?
Right angles.
Maybe right angles. We're not getting that
Corresponding
necessarily.
angles.
They're corresponding angles. They're in the same corner position, so they would be corresponding angles. Then we need to think about today for which lines. Which lines would I draw out that would make them corresponding angles? I don't need that angle 1 part of the picture at all. If I'm focusing on 2 and 3, I can trace out just those lines. And which 2 lines does it look might be parallel to each other then? BC and EF, which is what we want to prove. So we can say BC is parallel to EF. And our reason would be if corresponding angles congruent, then parallel. Question?
Hey, Stan, you haven't been putting the lines above the letters?
I
You
haven't
have to
been.
do that on tests?
I'm not going to be picky about the segment symbols above the names of lines. A lot of times we're going to end up naming our lines with lowercase letters, and so then we really don't need a symbol above them. And I'm not going to be picky about the line symbol here. Yeah, technically it should be there. There's enough other stuff going on here that I'm going to worry about that we can let that thing go.
Plus, you don't have times.
Right, yeah, I mean, I can.
I was
Just messy.
Do it on the test.
Questions on that proof? Okay, we're going to skip over to the worksheet D page now. And on worksheet D, the first one we are going to look at is number 1.
Number 1, you said?
Number 1.
The next page. Are we just doing notes, or are we just doing C and D, or are we going back?
Yes, we're doing worksheets C and D today. Okay, so in number 1, we are given information about 2 angles. We are asked to prove we have some parallel lines, and then we have a picture. Okay. Remember that on your homework, you don't have to write out your given and the proof and the picture if you don't want to. I'm writing them out here since I don't have the worksheet right in front of me, so I have something to reference back to. But on your homework, all you need to write out for sure is the body of the proof, the statements and reasons. So a good place to start is our given.
Do you have any extra packets?
If angle 2 is 122 and angle 4 is 122, what do we know about angle 2 and angle 4? They are congruent. So we can say angle 2 is congruent to angle 4. Our reason on that would be definition of congruence. That's what it means to be congruent. They're the same size. So if they're both 122 degrees, they're the same size, that means we can call them congruent. We could maybe do a substitution or transitivity there as well. I would probably accept that because we could say like it equals 122, which equals angle 4. So that could go. Technically, since I changed the symbol to congruent, we should probably say definition of congruence. But I would also take a substitution or transitivity there. Now in the picture, if I look at where angle 2 and angle 4 are, what kind of angles are they? Alternate interior, AIA. So we can then say R is parallel to S because one of our reasons was if AIA are congruent, then lines are parallel. So according to that flowchart, we have 5 different ways that we can show that lines are parallel. One way is corresponding angles being congruent, which we did in the last problem. Another way is alternate interior angles being congruent, and that's what we found in this one. Questions?
Can you go back?
I can't. It's just like a whiteboard. Once it's gone, it's gone. Next, we're going to look at question 3.
Are we doing, how many problems are we doing?
It's a mystery.
Semester? Do you know?
In number 3, we are given that 6 and 8 are congruent and that C and D are parallel. So I can mark that information. 6 and 8 are the same size, C and D are parallel. There are 2 different ways to do this proof that are distinctly different in the way that they think. So I'm going to show both of those. One is not better than the other, they are just different. And so some people may see different things or think about the problems in different ways, and that's totally fine. One of them has 3 steps, the other one has 4 steps, but just because it's shorter doesn't make it better. Okay, so it's just whatever we see to do. So I'm actually going to go through both of them. If you want to write them both down, that's fine. If you just want to write down one of them, that's fine. But I want to show different ways to think about the same problem. Either way, we're going to start with our given. So for our first one, I'm going to take the first piece of given information and build off of that. So if angle 6 is congruent to angle 8, in my picture, what kind of angles are 6 and 8?
Alternate interior angles.
Alternate interior angles. For which two lines?
B and A.
B and it's really a D. Sorry, that's a bad handwriting thing. But yeah, B and the one that looks like I wrote A, but it's really D down there. So 6 and 8 are next to the lines B and D, and they are alternate interior angles. So we can say then that line B is parallel to line D by if AIA congruent, then parallel. Since 6 and 8 are alternate interior angles and the lines that they're touching are lines B and D, that means lines B and D must be parallel. We were asked to prove that line B is parallel to line C. But now we've just said that B is parallel to D, but we know D is also parallel to C, so they should really all be parallel then. So we can say that B is parallel to C. And our reason is the very last one on that flow chart. If two lines parallel to same line, parallel to each other.
Would substitution work?
It would not. Substitution, we really need to be talking about some sort of an equation. When we are proving, that's a good question because it does look like we're just swapping out a letter. When we are proving parallel, the only thing that can go on the reason side is one of those 5 things in that flow chart. Okay? So if on your statement side, you are stating that you have parallels, the only thing that can go over on the reason side is one of those 5 things in that flow chart.
Oh.
Okay? So those are the 5 ways that we can say that we have parallels. So that's the first way to do this proof. It's a good question because it does, I mean, we're just swapping out a letter, so that seems like a substitution. Substitution is the base of the proof of this reason. If we're going to prove that reason, then substitution is the base of that reason. But we need to actually state this. For the second way. For the second way, we would still start with our given. I'm not going to rewrite it, but that given would be the same here. My little arrow. Taking the given down. I'm going to do the given again as our first reason. Then what I'm going to do differently this time is instead of focusing on the first part of that given, which said 6 and 8 are congruent, I'm going to focus on the second part of the given, which said that lines C and D are parallel. If C and D are parallel, what can we say in this picture then? 7 and 8 are congruent. Why? What kind of angles are 7 and 8? Corresponding. So we can say if parallel, corresponding angles congruent. Yes, question?
Do we have to do two different ways?
You do not.
Oh,
Nope,
okay.
I'm just showing 2 different ways because some people are going to see one thing better, some people are going to see another thing better. So you can kind of choose which way goes better with the way that you think. If our given says 6 is congruent to 8 and we just said 7 is congruent to 8, what can we say?
6 and 8 are congruent.
That was given.
6 and 7.
6 and 7 are congruent would be new information, and we can get that through transitive or substitution. Now if we look at 6 and 7 in the picture, what kind of angles are they?
Oh, I like the other way.
AIA. For which lines?
B and C.
B and C.
Yeah.
So then we can say B and C are parallel by if AIA congruent, then
Parallel.
parallel. So It was one step longer, but that doesn't make it a worse proof, okay? It doesn't matter to me whether we take the shortest possible way there. It just matters whether we get there, okay? Sometimes students start to get confused about like our reasons in step 2 and step 4, where one of them says if parallel, then stuff about angles, or the other one says if stuff about angles, then parallel, and students aren't quite sure which way to write those reasons, okay? Whatever you're saying on the statement side should be the then of what you're saying on your reason side. So in step 2, I was saying stuff about angles, so that should be the then part of my reason. In step 4, I was saying something about parallels, so that should be the then part of my reason. Okay? Whatever you're saying on your statement side should be the then part of the reason. That's how you can keep it straight, whether it's the if parallel or if angles. Okay? The then should match the statement. Questions on this problem?
No, I don't.
All right, we are going to go now to problem 5.
What page is it? It's like buttons. Turn around. Just kidding. No, I know more. That was take a picture.
All right, ready?
God,
Yeah.
Come on, guys, you're taking a
Okay, we're going to start with our given. J is parallel to K. Angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. We can mark that given. So J and K are parallel to each other. And angle 1 is the same size as angle 3. Angle 1 and angle 3 do not have a special relationship with each other in terms of being able to name them like AIAs or CAs or SSIAs or anything. Remember that you can only travel along one line to be able to name them special angles. So we did proofs that were a similar drawing to this in worksheet A, where actually all 16 angles were labeled, and we wanted to start at one angle and get to another angle. I said you can only travel along a line. You can't jump to a diagonal group. So like 1 to 3, that would be a diagonal group. Those don't have any sort of special relationship with each other. But we are told that they're congruent. We are also told that J and K are parallel to each other. So I really want to focus on lines J and K, okay, because they are parallel to each other. That is given information. Now I'm going to want to say something about either angle 1 or angle 3, since I am given information already about 1 and 3. So if I go with angle 1, what could I say about angle 1? I need to say angle 1 is the same size as something. What can I say is the same size as?
2.
4.
Okay, so I heard options of 2 or 4. One of those will work and the other one will not. Here's what we need to be careful of. I need to make sure that if I cover the picture so that I'm only seeing the 2 angles you said, that I'm still seeing for sure parallel lines. So if I cover up the right-hand side of this picture and see 1 and 4, am I still seeing parallel lines?
No.
Not necessarily. The 2 lines I'm seeing are L and M, which are still blue in my drawing, because we don't know if they're parallel. That's actually what we're trying to prove. If I cover up the bottom of the picture so I see angles 1 and 2, do I still see parallel lines?
Yeah.
Yes. So that is an okay jump to make. So I can go from 1 to 2, but I cannot go from 1 to 4, because the lines that make 1 and 4 might not be parallel. At least we don't know that they are yet. Okay? So we need to be careful that when we say that 2 angles are the same, that the lines that are making them are actually parallel to each other. I didn't write given there. And then this one would be if parallel, what kind of angles are 1 and 2?
Corresponding angle.
Corresponding angles are congruent. Okay, so now one's the same size as 2, one is also the same size as 3, so what can we say?
2 is
1 is congruent to 3.
1 congruent to 3 is given.
2 is equal to
2 is congruent to 3.
That was what we were trying to do. Wow.
Through transitivity or substitution.
Oh, that's trans.
And now in the picture, if we look at angles 2 and 3, what kind of angles are 2 and 3?
They are, no.
They are
Alternate. Yeah.
Alternate interior.
not exterior.
They're interior because they're between a pair of lines. Which lines are making angles 2 and 3?
D and M or whatever. Or
L and M. So we can say L and M are parallel by if AIA congruent, then parallel.
Yes.
Okay, because 2 and 3 are AIAs and the lines that are making them are L and M. So we can say L and M are parallel. Questions? Okay, we are now going to jump to number 19.
Ooh, 19 is not bad.
Number 19 does not have a picture with it. So that means we need to draw our own picture. When I need to do that, I just go to the standard. You can name your lines whatever you want to name them. You can give your angles whatever kind of names you want. But I usually just do A and B and number them 1 to 8. But that is up to you. I need a picture with lines and a transversal. Number 19 is a theorem that says if 2 lines are cut by a transversal so that alternate exterior angles are congruent. The if is the given. So we are given that alternate exterior angles are congruent. Where's a pair of alternate exterior angles in this picture? 2 and 7 or 1 and 8, and it does not matter which pair you say. They are both true. So you just need to pick one of those 2 pairs. So the theorem says if alternate exterior angles are congruent, then the lines are parallel. The then is what we're trying to prove. So we're trying to prove that A is parallel to B. You actually proved the converse to this in your homework from worksheet A. In your homework from worksheet A, it said if lines are parallel, then alternate exteriors are congruent. So you proved the converse to this in that first homework assignment. All right, we are going to start with our given. Now, to be able to say I have parallel lines, I have to be able to get to one of those 5 reasons on that sheet. So we need to be talking about parallel to the same line or perpendicular to the same line. There aren't enough lines in this picture to make that work. We could talk about AIAs that are congruent, correspondings that are congruent, or same-side interiors that are supplementary. Warning, I would stay away from same-side interiors unless your problem is already talking about 180s. Right? Our problem is talking about congruence, so I would stick with something that's congruent. So, where can I go from angle 2? Be careful. We don't know we have parallel lines. So what is the only angle that I can say for sure? 3. A lot of students want to say that 2 is congruent to 6. But if we did that, our reason would be if parallel, corresponding angle is congruent. And we don't have parallels yet. So we can't say that. The only place we can go from 2 is to 3 because vertical angles do not require parallel lines. If 2 is congruent to 7 and 2 is congruent to 3, then what do I know? 3 is congruent to 7. What is that called?
Substitution.
Substitution or transitivity. Now, what kind of angles are 3 and 7?
those are same side.
Corresponding. They are on the same side, but they are not both interior. One is outside of the line, the other one is inside the lines. So they are corresponding angles, and that is one of our 5 reasons that we can say we have parallels by if corresponding angles congruent, then parallel.
Question?
Yes.
Could you just use if AIA congruent and only do one step?
We didn't have any information about AIAs. AIAs would be like
What
3
about-
and 6.
Just assume that 2 and 7 are like.
Those are AEAs, alternate exteriors. And even so, that's a really good point. We wouldn't be allowed to use that reason because that would be using the reason of the theorem we're trying to prove. So that would be like, I think when we did worksheet A, I said like if I ask you to define cytoplasm and you tell me a cytoplasm, I haven't built anything. So that would be the same kind of thing. Which is like question 20, which you will be doing for homework. So for question 20, you need a picture. I would suggest the same picture. Okay? Question 20 says if interior angles on the same side are supplementary. So in this picture, what would be a pair of same side interior angles?
3 and
4 and 6. So 4 plus 6 equals 180 is our given. A pair of same side interior angles are supplementary. Prove that the lines are parallel. One of those 5 reasons says if same side interior angles are supplementary, then the lines are parallel. You cannot use that reason in this one. Okay? So you can't just do this in 2 steps and say same side interior angles are supplementary. Okay? You can use that reason for anything else, but since that is exactly what this one is trying to prove, we can't use that reason here. Okay? So on this one, you need to use one of the other 4 reasons. So for this one, number 20, do not talk about same side interior angles. Okay? For all the other ones you can, but not for number 20. So your homework then is on worksheet C, number 6, 7, 8, and 9. Notice 9 is handwritten off to the side. On worksheet C, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And on worksheet D, 2, 4, 6, and 20.
Oh my goodness.
That's only
What are the ones that are problems?
2, 4, 6, and 20
8.
from worksheet D. 6, 7, 8, 9 from worksheet C. That is 8 proofs for your homework.
It's killing me here.